Like I was at the final between Portugal and Spain in the Nations League, and I got to see a player we were going to talk about in a moment, Nico Williams, and I started to see Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal did not have an outstanding game, but he was still useful. You know what I mean, Stefan? Like, he was still useful in a game that he wasn't very good by his standards. And that's the frustration I had always with Sané. When he if he did not have a good game by his standard, he wasn't useful.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, how many times have we watched them kind of just drift through and they kind of halfway line, waiting for the ball, coming deep, just passing it around, not really making runs. He's a very frustrating player. There's no doubt about it. In many ways, and yeah, we'll have to see who Bayern signed to replace him, because they're now going to have to bring somebody in, especially if Coman or Kingsley Coman or Serge Gnabry fall him out the door.
So there is talks. Maybe Bayern read my newsletter, because it's quite interesting. I mean, this is a newsletter that was written on more than just a hunch, to say it that way. It was people kind of talking around the whole Nico Williams thing to me, and again, as I sat there in the Allianz Arena on Sunday and watched Spain against Portugal, if you have the chance to sign Nico Williams, you got to do it now. You got to sign this player, Stefan. It's such an incredible, well-rounded, fascinating player to watch. And I know the productivity isn't always there, 100%. But the way he impacts Spain's game on that left wing reminds me so much of what Michael Olise does for Bayern and France on the right wing. I mean, there is a world out there now that you can imagine where you have Williams, Musiala, and Olise being your front three behind Harry Kane. That's incredible. If Bayern Munich can go and sign him for his release clause is 50 million euros, Stefan. I mean, that's bonkers. You can get this guy for, somewhere between 50 and 60 million euros. That's Olise type money. And if he wants to join, and you have now the Sané money of your book, you can literally turn around and give that to him. And you should probably do it, right? Like, if Nico Williams, as is now being reported, and I understand this to be true, is interested in joining Bayern Munich, and yes, this will come at a high financial cost in terms of salary, I think if you're the Bayern board, you got to do this now. This is your solution.
Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting player in a number of ways. I'd maybe argue he's had a little more of a kind of muted season compared to last season, where he really burst onto the scene for club and country. He's only got 0.45 goals and assists per 90 compared to 0.64 last season, so definitely a drop-off. But what really interests me about him is his ability to break the lines. There was ability to dribble with the ball, his ability to go past players, and he's obviously done that incredibly well for, Athletic Bilbao in Spain. But to do that for Bayern Munich would obviously be an entirely different level. And as you said, much like he does for Spain, where they need players that can obviously break down two banks of defences, because that's often how Spain play against teams. And if he can do it for Spain, then you'd presumably think he can do it for Bayern Munich just as well. And yeah, I think he'd be an excellent long-term solution for them on that left wing. I think it makes perfect sense. If they can get him for 50 million euros or whatever it is, then I think he'd be a great addition on that left wing, a great replacement for Sané, no doubt. And if they can obviously move on someone like Kingsley Coman, then you would think they have the money to obviously move around to make that transfer fee and offer him the wages that he needs. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. The only thing that does kind of hold me off is maybe like his output isn't world class, but I guess it then comes down to whether you're worried about that or you just think, well, he's playing for a mid-table club in Spain. He's carrying that team on his back a lot of the time. If he was playing for Bayern Munich, where he's playing against teams that defend for 90 minutes, he'd have a lot more fun. He'd create a lot more chances. He'd have far more opportunities to shoot and score and things like that. Then those numbers would really quickly begin to move up very quickly. Because when it comes to his dribbling stats and carrying with the ball, he's outstanding. Really is kind of top class. And that's maybe the thing that probably interests Bayern Munich the most. It's the thing that I think Bayern Munich should be looking for. They should be looking for someone who can take players on and kind of do something
Yeah.
magical with that, because as you said, and as we've been talking about for much of the season, Bayern were so incredibly reliant on Jamal Musiala last season, and then this season they were so incredibly reliant on Michael Olise on that right wing. They haven't really found a way to put together a team where everyone's kind of providing, and that's because the team's always has been so unbalanced for so long. They've just never really had anyone on that left wing that can do that same or have that same impact as an Olise or Jamal Musiala, i.e., turn a game on its head in a moment's notice. And that's desperately what they need. And if they can get someone like Williams in that left wing, then that kind of changes things very quickly, because it takes the pressure off Musiala and Olise, allows them to play with a bit more freedom, and in turn it opens up a lot more space for everyone as well. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how he would do at Bayern, because I think the key thing to watch for him is just his incredible dribbling, his ability to go past players, his output. They can work on that, but even if he's just breaking the lines and disrupting, solid defenses, then that's still a huge asset for Bayern Munich, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to see it live, right, 5 meters in front of me, because in the first half, his left wing was right in front of where the media sits at the Allianz Arena. And, it's one thing to look at the stats and seeing him on TV, but when you get to see it live, it's like a different, you just, I don't want to say, okay, well, the stats don't mean anything. They definitely do. And you raise a really important point. Like, I look at his productivity at Bilbao, and you very little bit, right? But then I saw him live on Sunday, and I was like, holy crap, this is a good player. I think he's really, really good. It's that ability that you mentioned to take on the very best in the world one-on-one, and like Portugal has the very best in the world on right and left back, like this is the level that you're talking about. And he didn't score, and he didn't, I don't think he provided an assist either, but there was so many moments. There was one moment where he just overran Portugal's defense, then cut back in, broke into the box, and his curled effort just went over the box and then like over the bar. And I'm like, this is like Arjen Robben type stuff, right? It's so fast, it's so pacey, it's impossible to defend. If he had been more clinical in that moment, that would have been a goal. But it's not only that, he likes to, the way he like runs down the line and then even all the way down to the touchline and then still create a dangerous moment from that. You don't see that at this level for many players. And yeah, I was sold at that moment. Like, if that wasn't, if I was the Bayern bosses sitting in one of the VIP boxes, which I'm 100% sure they were, and you still have doubts, I mean, what planet are you living on, Stefan? Like, just do it. It's not like you have millions of other options out there. I got to see the other guy that they're interested in, Rafael Leao, and I mean, in my opinion, there is a galaxy between the two.
Yeah. And I think you actually made a really interesting comparison there between Veth and Robben, actually. That's a really interesting way to look at it. I think it's probably a really smart one. And also, like, they don't really need someone who's going to have the inch-perfect passing, who can thread a needle through, 6 defenders, because that's what Olise is for. Mm-hmm. Olise is that guy who can pull off those incredible passes. And, Musiala likes to run with the ball. He likes to finish the ball. Musiala's much more of a goal scorer, in my opinion, than a playmaker. So, those two work well because Olise sets up chances, Musiala finishes them, and then you've got Nico Williams on the left, who can obviously create chances as well, but has a different, is kind of a mix of both, where he's direct, but probably, well, actually, I guess he's probably more like Musiala in that regard, I would say. But the point I'm making is that they don't really need him to be, the playmaker. They've got that in Olise. They've got that in Kimmich as well, who's obviously a really good playmaker. You can maybe even draw a comparison to Frank Ribery. I know it's really obvious to do because it's Bayern Munich, but my kind of lasting memory of Frank Ribery is him standing on the sideline with the ball, skipping by a defender. That's just if I had to think of like a 4 or 5 second gif of him doing some piece of skill, it would be him flicking the ball over an on-running defender on the sideline and going past him. And, that's what he was world class at. And, Arjen Robben was equally just as good at it. But that's what Bayern are desperately missing. Kingsley Coman could have done that for a while because he had that raw pace. He was never, I wouldn't really say he was a one-on-one expert. He could obviously get by players when he was quick enough, but He's just not that anymore. Same with Serge Gnabry. I wouldn't really say the same. Although Gnabry's had his moments this season, to be fair, but obviously they can't rely on him to be playing 40, 50 games a season next year. So Williams seems like a no-brainer to me, man. I completely agree.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. It's still in the early stages. Bilbao, historically not an easy club to negotiate with. We all remember how difficult it was for Bayern Munich to get Javi Martinez from them, right? Despite an exit clause and triggering the exit clause and all that. So stay tuned. But it is exciting that, as Sané moves on, there seems to be now a very viable, fantastic option. If you're a Bayern fan, I think you'd be really excited that it is trending in that direction.